Alright, we have finally got it right here. This is the all-new Galaxy A73 5G. It's the top-of-the-line A series in 2022, which we just talked about a couple of weeks ago. And today, we're going to unbox this thing and talk about it a little bit more on my thoughts about this phone. So as you can see right now, the box is really slim because it doesn't come with a charger anymore, just like Samsung's S series and Z Fold devices. So yeah, they are finally not including a charger anymore with the A series and even the entry-level models in the near future. Alright, so here's the Galaxy A73 5G in its really nice, awesome black color, which we're going to put it aside. And finally, inside this slim box here, we get the user manuals. There's no TPU case, by the way, so you only get a SIM ejector and a couple of paperwork right inside this little box here. Right, let's just take it out of the plastic right now. There we go. It is beautiful, awesome black color. It doesn't look entirely black when you have it like under lighting. It looks a bit of grayish right here, but it looks really nice. And let's quickly turn on and set up the device. So we've got the A73 5G all set up, and let's talk a little bit about the hardware. So what you're seeing right here is a 6.7-inch Full HD Plus Super AMOLED display that refreshes at 120 Hz. The animations are buttery smooth and the polling rate is really good as well. And on the front here, you get a 32-megapixel camera that takes 4K videos. This is a punch hole cutout, which isn't the largest, neither it is the smallest as well, but it's just nice. It doesn't feel obtrusive at all. So you get a little bit of bezels around the screen right over here, which is kind of acceptable for a mid-range phone. Now, the SIM tray is located at the top over here instead of the side like most phones that we've seen out there. I'm not sure what's the decision over this, but then this is a hybrid SIM tray that accepts either a dual SIM or a nano SIM or a micro SD card. So you can definitely expand the storage of this phone. And talking about specs, the A73 5G is powered by a Snapdragon 778G processor, which we love it a lot. Back on the A52s 5G, it has 8GB of RAM on board and 256GB of internal storage. The phone features the RAM Plus virtual RAM feature that you can actually expand up to another 8GB of RAM if you want to, and if you just happen to realize that you don't get enough RAM to run more applications in the background. But otherwise, I really wouldn't suggest that you enable that because that RAM is actually pretty slow, right? So right at the bottom, you only get a USB-C port, and the phone supports up to 25 watts of fast charging, and it has a really huge 5000 mAh battery inside. So that 25 watts fast charging is pretty useful, even though it's not the fastest in the industry, but then yeah, it's pretty useful for charging such a huge battery. Now, what I'm really glad this time is that Samsung has actually made dual stereo speakers standard on all of its A series device, and the A73 5G comes with stereo speakers. Now, let me do a quick sound test for you guys right over here because I just tested it and it actually sounds really great, and it's probably one of the best stereo speakers that I've heard on a mid-range phone, alright? Alright, so that was on the maximum volume on the Galaxy A73 5G, and I have to say that the speaker quality sounds really good, even though it still lacks a little bit of bass. But I would have to say, compared to so many other mid-range phones I've tried out, this is definitely one of the best out there. In terms of the main cameras right at the back over here, they are pretty much similar to last year's A series, but then you do not get a telephoto lens anymore. So you get a 108 megapixel main camera with OIS, that's on the A73 5G, which is supported by a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 5 megapixel macro, and a 5 megapixel bokeh lens, right? So the other two lenses, I personally don't find it that useful because I don't really take macro shots all the time, and seriously, I don't really need that portrait camera if I can, because it's actually the least useful of all. So before I try out the camera, I also want to comment another thing, which is actually the fingerprint reader over here. So this phone has a in-screen fingerprint reader, but it is actually positioned right at the bottom here. So it's not an ultrasonic fingerprint reader like you get on the S22 Ultra, but it's positioned at quite a low angle, which I kind of feel that Samsung could have just shifted that fingerprint reader to a little bit higher so that my thumb easily reaches it, but then it's actually right at the bottom there. So you gotta just adjust your angle a little bit to touch that fingerprint reader if you want to use it to unlock your phone. And now let's do a quick test on the camera right over here. So once I fire up the camera, this is a very familiar interface that you will get on most Samsung's modern devices here. So here are the camera modes that you are getting here. You get Pro, pro video. You even get the single take feature that I actually like it a lot. If you're a bad photographer, you should definitely try out the single take feature. Now you don't get things like the director's mode that is on the S series, because that is actually a really powerful feature that you can activate all the lens all at once, but this is definitely not available on the A73 5G. So on first impressions, the 108 megapixel camera, pretty serviceable, but I wouldn't say that the colors are the best based on what I'm looking at the screen right here. There's definitely good detail right over here, but if you were to compare this kind of colors to Samsung's S21 Ultra or even S22 Ultra, don't expect that, even though it is a 108 megapixel camera. So we have pretty good lighting right over here, so the image quality definitely looks pretty good. I've also taken another macro shot on this knife right over here, and overall the 5 megapixel macro camera is pretty serviceable. It's not the best, of course, but it's definitely sharp enough if you want to take some close-up photos of flowers or anything that's close up. It's definitely a serviceable 5 megapixel camera. And next, let's take a look at selfies. The image quality is pretty amazing. I think it's probably the best, one of the best mid-range phones with a good selfie camera that I've seen. The details are sharp, and there's also, of course, the beautify feature turned on, which makes my face smoother and prettier like a K-pop oppa. But then, you know, it's a pretty great selfie camera that you can depend on if you're using this for road trips and for your wifis and selfies. It's definitely a great one. So that's pretty much all my first impressions and hands-on on the Galaxy A73 5G. It is a great mid-range phone that I look forward to daily drive, and I hope to report back in the next 2 weeks about my thoughts on using this phone. So that's pretty much on my first impressions and hands-on of the Galaxy A73 5G. It's a really great phone that I can't wait to daily drive and tell you my thoughts about it in about 2 weeks time. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for our channel for more videos. Stay subscribed, and I'll see you guys in our next one.